Tutorial, a guideline to downloading CADs from WGSN and editing them in Illustrator. So during this tutorial I'm going to be showing you how to edit this downloaded CAD from WGSN and transform it into this skinny jean. You can download and edit ready-drawn Cad Flats from WGSN.com. Go to WGSN.com and a home page similar to this one will come up. Go to the drop-down menu. When you click on it, this page will come up. Go to Design Library down here, and then you'll see this page will come up, and a variety of different things that you can download and edit will be available here. We're going to go over to Cad Flats here. When you go over to the Cad Flats page, this huge library comes up with tens and thousands of Cad Flats that are available for you to edit. You've got a refined search area here which will make it a lot more easier. So the first thing I know that I'm doing women's wear, so I'm going to instantly narrow my search down by selecting women's wear here. So there's a lot fewer CADs then to search through. And there's various different other options going through here too. So if I go under classifications, in this instance I'm going to be looking at trousers, so I can narrow it down to now about just over 2,000 options, which makes it a lot more easier. And then you can search for a variety of other things too. So under keywords you can always go to see more. So, for example, I know I want to look at sort of jeans, so I'm going to look at denim. And that's shrunk it down to even fewer options here. And then you can also go and select the season. So if it's autumn-winter, you could search for autumn-winter or spring-summer. But because I'm going to be editing these, it doesn't really matter if it's spring-summer or autumn-winter. Whatever I click on, I can edit to be specific to that season anyway. Once you've found a CAD that you like the look of, if you click on the little eye for information beside the CAD down the bottom, it brings up this little window that says all the details about the CAD flat. And the main thing you want to check is the format to make sure that it's a vector CAD. On the odd occasion it could be a JPEG, which is very difficult to edit, so it's really important to look for one that is a vector. I think about 95% of them on their WGSN are vectors, so it'd be unusual and unlikely or unlucky to find a JPEG, but it is just worth checking. So if I'm happy with this one, and I've checked obviously now that I know that it's a vector, I can just click on this arrow here and it will download it. And you can see there it's downloaded it into my downloads file, and it's actually automatically opened up in Illustrator for me to make it nice and easy too. So the first thing you need to do once you've downloaded and got your CAD open in Illustrator is to save it. So just go to File, Save As, give it a name, and save it to somewhere where you're going to remember it. Keep it as this AI Illustrator file. The first thing when you're editing CADs is remembering the 3 different selection tools that you can use. The first one is the black filled mouse arrow, which is a group selection tool, which when you click on something, it will select the whole thing. So you can see when I select the trouser here, it's moving the whole thing around. If I click off it and go and choose one of the second ones, so the second one being the group selection tool, it selects bits individually within something that is grouped. So for example, now if I go and select on the button, or I zoom in a bit more into the stitching by the trouser, you can see it selects things all individually. And the last one is the direct selection tool, which is the clear field mouse, which if you zoom into a certain part of the trousers, when you click on a line, you can see all the little anchor points come up, similar to like when you draw a line with the pen tool. And if you click on those, you can edit the line, change the angles of things, delete bits. So it's a lot more precise, so it can actually allows you to edit individual lines. So just to recap, you've got the group selection tool, which is the black filled arrow, which selects everything as a group. The arrowhead with the plus sign next to it, the group selection tool, which will select anything individually within a group. And then finally the white filled mouse, which is the direct selection tool, which allows you to physically edit something, an actual line. So these are the 3 tools that we'll be using the most. So I'm going to start editing this CAD now. The first thing I'm going to do, just through preference, is to remove these grey shaded filled pieces, just because I don't really like them, and I do my own sort of shading at the end, which makes it look a bit more realistic in my opinion. So I'm just using the group selection tool, which is the arrowhead with the plus sign, and just individually clicking on each of these grey areas to get rid of them. So the next thing to do is to start looking at how this jean has been constructed. Now I want to make mine into a skinny jean, so obviously I'm going to be editing mainly the bottom area from just above the knee to the bottom. So the best thing to do is get the group selection tool, so the arrowhead with the plus, and then just start clicking the different bits to see how it's physically being drawn by whoever it was at WGSN that drew it. So I can see here on this side that there's a piece here that wants to come off, so I'm just going to delete that because there's no need for it. I'll be redrawing that. Also the stitching at the bottom I can get rid of too, because obviously I'll be changing the bottom of the leg. And also it's worth mentioning that I only need to really edit one leg, because I can just copy and paste and reflect this over at the end once I've drawn it. So if I zoom in a bit further, I can see on this side too there's been a separate piece cut here. I can get rid of that too, and also the stitch line there. So I'm basically just left with one side of the leg that I'll be editing. Not all CADs are drawn in the same way, so it's a really good idea just to have a play around with whatever you're going to be editing using the group selection tool, just to see what are the best bits to delete or the bits that are worth saving. So obviously here I've just left with that piece of the leg, so that's absolutely perfect for what I need to do. So I've now downloaded a picture of a skinny jean, which I'm going to use as my template to help me trace and re-edit the CAD that I've got already downloaded. So I'm just going to bring that over, and as you can see it's covering up my CAD now, so I want to go to Object, Arrange and Send to the very back. So obviously my CAD's in front, and then you can see here that actually it's now got a white fill that becomes apparent, so I'm just going to click off everything, go and get my group selection tool with the plus sign and click and get rid of the white background. And then I'm going to click back on my image, and actually I'm going to drop the transparency down because it just makes it easier for me to trace over the top, and I can still get an idea of just the outline silhouette of the jean. And then I'm going to lock the jean, so pressing Command and 2. So I think my jean's all fine, probably down to about the knee point. And then obviously I'm just going to want to make it resemble this sort of skinny silhouette from there onwards. So what I'm going to do is go and get the direct selection tool, which is the white filled arrowhead, and click on the outline. And from about here, I want to delete the line, so I'm just going to delete there. And then I click off, because if I press delete again, it's going to get rid of everything. So if I click off and onto the side, well away from my CAD, if I click over here, if I delete that bit, it's going to get rid of the curve. And I'm actually okay with the curve, so I think I'll just delete this part here. And then I'm going to click off again, because if I click delete again, of course, it's going to delete the top and the bottom piece. So I'm clicking off well away from my CAD. And I'm just going to select this area here, and I can press delete twice to get rid of all of that mess there, because I don't need that anymore. And now it's going back to the pen tool. So the pen tool you should all be familiar with, and it's the one with the fountain pen nib. And I'm going to select the pen tool here. And as I click towards the end of the line, you can see how it's just wanting to connect to it. And I'm just going to sort of follow the sort of silhouette of the skinny jean. Doesn't matter if I go slightly wrong. At the end, I can always re-edit it, amend the line. If I come up to here, I now know I'm just going to want to curve slightly up here. So I'm just going to go and click onto the end and just curve it slightly. So now I should have a decent sort of skinny jean outline there. I'm not quite happy with it. It's got a bit too pointy, so I'm just going to select on that with the direct selection tool, so the white filled mouse, and just edit it to smooth it out. And actually now I'm going to unlock the image in the background, so I press Command Alt and 2, and you can see that's come back. If I just hide it for a second by pressing Command and 3, I think that does give quite a good silhouette for a skinny jean. I might just edit it slightly, just using the direct selection tool, just by the eye, just to make it look nice and neat. And all this just comes with practice. So I'm happy with that. And if I just reveal my image again, I don't think I'm going to need that anymore. It's saved in my documents anyway, so I can always bring it back if I need it later. I've got my one side of the leg happily drawn as a skinny jean. So the next thing I'm going to do is, if I go down to the bottom, obviously I want to add some stitching at the bottom. So I'm going to get the direct selection tool and just select that bottom line, and I'm going to copy it and paste it so I've got exactly the same line. Now I'm going to go back and get the other tool, because I don't want to obviously edit that or for it to bend, and just place it where I want the stitching to be placed, so about there. And then I can use my tool here, the eyedropper tool, to go and select the stitching here so that it's exactly the same. So I've got my stitching there. So I've now got one side of my leg drawn exactly as I want it. So as I said earlier, I want to reflect this side of the jean to that side so that they're exactly symmetrical. So I want to now start deleting this side of the jean. So I've got my group selection tool, which is the arrowhead again with the plus, and I'm just going to delete the areas. I also want to delete this little insert pocket because I'm going to redraw that actually to my own preferences afterwards. So as you can see, I've now got all of that leg deleted. So now I don't need to copy the fly because obviously you only have the fly on one side. So I'm going to select the areas up here that I want to copy and paste. So obviously I want all of that area there. So I've just selected over the whole lot, and I'm just going to actually just hold shift to select the extra piece of stitching. So if I hide that, you can see I've got all the area selected that I want to copy and paste. So I'm going to copy that. I'm just going to select off what I've copied just so that you can see what I'm doing. And then I'm going to paste on top, so Command and F, and then go to Object, Transform, Reflect, and make sure it's reflected vertically so it goes exactly opposite. I'll just zoom in a bit. And then I'm going to hold down Shift to make sure I pull it exactly next to it. So when you do that, you want to select where you've got the pasted piece, and make sure you select on the actual line. If you select inside or something, it won't select it because it's got no fill. So select on the line, hold down Shift, and bring to where you want it to be placed. And then let go of your mouse first, and then Shift. And then it should be exactly where you want it. You can always just nudge it with the arrow cursor keys just to make sure it's in the right place. I can see here that mine slightly overlaps there, so I'm just going to make sure it's in exactly the right place. You can just play around with it when it's zoomed in. And I'm just going to grab that piece there, and actually I can probably just delete that piece. And then this piece that's connected, I'm just going to select all of those and just nudge that over. And I'll just edit that piece there just so that it's nice and smooth. So now I've got a completely symmetrical jean. So now I've got my jean as I want it. I'm just going to look at it now, and I feel like these little bits here are just a bit sticky outy for me. So I'm just going to select using the direct selection tool, so the white field mouse, and just use the arrow cursors just to nudge it in a bit, just to smooth it out. So same on this side, just nudging it a couple of times. I just think that makes it just a little bit more smoother. The other thing when I'm looking at it, I also feel that mine's quite long, so I want to shorten it a bit. So again, using my direct selection tool, I'm just going to select this bottom bit, and you can see all the anchor points come up. And as I sort of select over them, it selects certain parts, so all these ones are dark, if you can see it. And as I nudge up just using my cursor tools, it just helps shorten the jeans slightly without them going out of proportion. And I think I'll select all of these bits, and again just sort of nudge them up a little bit more, and as you can see it's just slightly shrinking. And then I think finally just maybe up here, just a few bits too. And as you're doing it gradually, you can see if it becomes distorted. I think that just helps make it look maybe a little bit more in proportion. So now I want to add the little insert pocket that was originally here. So I'm just going to zoom into this area. As you zoom in, you can see sometimes that there's areas that you've kind of created. So for example, this belt loop's off mark. So I'm going to select it by holding down Shift and selecting the two stitch lines in the outer belt loop, and just move it so that it's exactly the same as the other one, so it just sits to the inside of the pocket like so. But as you can see, there's a piece here in the waistband that's now drawn incorrectly. So what I do is go and get my pen tool and select the one with the minus, which says delete anchor point. And you can see all these little anchor points that you go and see as you go along the line. And if we select on this one, so actually physically selecting on that dot, it gets rid of that one, and the same on that side. And you can see it's just edited that out, so it now sits nicely and flat. Next thing I want to do is to fill it with white, because obviously you can see through here the waistband. So I'm just going to make sure that I've got my fill at the front, which obviously at the moment has the red line, which means it's got no fill. I'm just going to select the white. So there we go, that's the waistband updated, so it both looks the same. So now to draw my insert pocket, I'm just going to get my pen tool for this. So making sure I've got my normal pen tool, because obviously I've been using the one with the minus after it before. and just sort of draw on top where I want it to go, so roughly looking like that. And then I'm just going to use a curve here to make it line with the pocket, and it's filled with white already, which is fine. So I'm just going to grab the direct selection tool and copy and paste the top line, and make sure I use the eyedropper tool to get the stitching. And then I'm going to copy and paste that again and just bring in the edges, just because obviously they overlap now, so I'm doing that using the direct selection tool. And then on this side too, there is always a stitching, so put the line of stitching there. And then also, just to add to it, I'm going to draw a circle which is going to act as like a little rivet that you often get on denim wear too. And for this I'm just going to use the eyedropper tool and select the same fill and outline as the button at the top. And then just to make life easier, I can select all these bits I've just drawn, holding down Shift, and group them all together. So there, I've got my little insert pocket as well. So my jeans are beginning to take shape, and I'm quite happy with them at the moment. So at this point I can start thinking about colouring them in. So in preparation for starting to colour in, I like to start to colour in each area with a shade. So I'm just going to use a grey colour that automatically comes up in my swatches palette, just so that I know the areas that will be coloured in and find any areas that might have errors. So each area I sort of select individually and fill with grey. So making sure the outline obviously is black and the fill colour, obviously at the moment with the red line it's invisible, but I'm filling it with grey. And then if I zoom in, get my belt loop, and then as we go to the other one, you can see there's not anything in there as a fill as I try and select it. So I get this outline, and again you can sort of see again there's a red line, so just making sure I fill that. Get these two outside bits, and carrying on like that. So making sure that you select the outlines, because if there's no fill you can't select inside. So again, and just making sure as you do it nothing gets covered up. As you can see there, it's just covered up this black piece that's in the back. So I'm just going to go to Object, Arrange, and Center Back. And sometimes, like with that instance, it wouldn't actually let me do it. If you copy it, delete it, and then paste it back on top, so Command F, and then Center Back. So going to Object, Arrange, and Center Back, or using the shortcut like I did, you'll see that it comes back and nothing's getting hidden up. And finally, if we get towards these pocket areas, you can see there's not actually necessarily something there, so filling those with grey as well. And then finally my pocket. So you can see everything's filled with grey, and obviously the back is already filled with a darker grey anyway, so that's all my areas coloured. So now all my areas are coloured in, I'm going to fill it with a colour. And because I don't want to just use these standard flat colours, I've actually previously been onto Google and found a denim swatch which I've cut out in Photoshop, and I'm now just dragging and dropping into my Illustrator file. So first of all I want to scale it down to size, because obviously it's a bit large like that. And then once I'm happy with it, I just drag and drop it into my swatch palettes, and you can see that it should just pop up there, although it is quite small. So now what I can do is go and grab my group selection tool, select one of the colours that I've filled already, make sure it's at the front, go to select same fill colour, because I filled them in with all the same coloured grey, and then just select my denim, and you can see it's all filled in then with denim. And also I can just go and select my back inside waistband and do the same. So there we go, I've got a whole denim jean now filled in with denim to make it look a bit more realistic. And the second thing I want to do is just create a wash effect on top. So to do that, I'm going to make sure that nothing's selected, so you can just select well off your CAD to make sure. And then I'm going to make sure that I've got no outline, so keeping the red line through there, and making sure the fill is white. Then I'm actually just going to use my pencil tool and just really roughly, should be quite easy, just create like a box circled in area just with inside the leg. And as I click off that, you can sort of see, hopefully, oh, it's gone back to, but just make sure I've got the white fill back there. So it's that kind of shape, just sitting on top. So first of all, I'm going to drop down the transparency quite a long way. And then I'm also going to go to Effect, Stylize, click on Feather, and you can press Preview. And you can see when I've done that, it sometimes takes a second, it just softens the edges as I go and crease it up and down. So it looks like there's a proper denim wash on there. Sometimes you might want to reduce the transparency a little bit more afterwards. So then I'm going to copy and paste straight on top and go to Object, Transform, Reflect and take it over to the other side. So I've got two. And then you can see there that I've got a slightly washed effect. And again, you can just play around with the transparency as you like to make the wash look stronger or lighter. The other thing I also did was find a tear, a jean tear, which I took into Photoshop and deleted around the edges and softened the edges with a brush. So I'm just going to embed that, reduce the size of it down, and you can just replace it onto your denim jean, maybe at the knee or wherever, just to give it the effect of a tear. Maybe you want to place one on the other side too or make it look slightly smaller. So there I've got a denim jean with two tears and a wash. Finally, once you're happy with your CAD, make sure you save it so you can always go back and edit it if you want to change it or edit this one again into a different sort of jean again. And also, if you wanted to put it into a second file, so for example, you want to put it into Excel, into a range plan, or maybe into InDesign, because this would be quite a large file, you need to go to File, Export, and save it as a PNG. Make sure it's always high quality, and if you select transparency, it will prevent that white box that comes up around things, so it's just transparent and it will fit over objects and things. And then you're ready to try another one on your own.